Everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit of a different one. So obviously this channel, I'm crossing my legs because it's far more comfortable, but obviously this channel is predominantly about me vlogging and my life and beauty and fashion, and I've spent the last 2 years kind of focusing around that and building stories around that and talking about stuff like that and talking about what I like. And oh my god, this chair is so uncomfortable. But today's video is more of a chatty video, although I do want to keep it quite to the point, and I also have some water with me so that I can keep talking and not get dry mouth. But I wanted to talk about something that I've not really spoken about in depth on my channel. I feel like there are so many videos around this subject, and it almost seems like everyone is suffering in some way with their mental health, and it's talked about so much more now, which is amazing, and it's so great that this is becoming more of a talking point. I've not really ever delved into it too much on my channel because I kind of felt like, you know, everyone else had it covered. So I've got kind of a different angle to take on it and to just discuss it. So basically I just thought I would tell you a bit about me, my mental health journey, what I went through, where I am now, and a little bit in between. I'm hoping that it isn't going to be as long as my vlogs, but I can't promise anything. You guys know how I like to chat. Let's get into the first bit. I've got a few little headings on here. So the reason why I'm talking about this now is because I feel like I'm someone that has gone through it and come out the other side. There is a lot of talk about coping with your mental health and anxiety and things like that, and all of the different facets that mental health has. And I don't necessarily see a lot of people talking about where they are now or whether they've overcome it. I don't feel like I have to cope necessarily with what I went through on a daily basis. I feel like I've moved past it. So that's basically why I'm offering a little bit of insight into my mental health, and now I'm going to stop talking about why and get into the good stuff. So I would say that I first experienced problems with my mental health around 5 years ago. And if you don't know, Ali and I bought our first home after being together a year, and we talked about all of that in our boyfriend tag. So if you want to watch that, it's in the description box down below. And what had happened before that is I'd been in a really long-term relationship, and that broke down, and I ended up getting into another relationship, which actually wasn't a good relationship for either of us involved. It didn't last very long. It was very intense. It was very, it messed with my head quite a lot. And to say that it crashed and burned is an understatement. I often think to myself, oh, that should never have happened, but it all comes down to my path. And that's another video that I kind of want to touch on, is how I view relationships and how I've seen my relationships. So if you want to know something about relationships and if you want to have me chat about that, then let me know in the description box. Give this video a thumbs up and I'll know that you want to see that in the next kind of chatty video. I actually found myself without anywhere to live. I'd been at university, I moved back from university to live with him, and I didn't have a great relationship with my mum at the time, so I think I went back there and I was sleeping on her sofa, which was just awful. And then that fell apart, and that was when I had nowhere to go. And luckily I ended up going to live with my grandma, and I stayed there for 2 years. And I believe that it kind of started creeping up on me then. In that time I met Ali and we started our relationship. So I was with my grandma for a year, and I realised that I wanted to save to buy a house. I didn't want to go and rent anywhere. I wanted to save my money, buy myself a house, and just be completely independent. I didn't want to have to rely on anyone in my life. I wanted to have that security of not needing anyone. That was what I set about doing. So I didn't go out, I didn't do anything. I just spent my weekends with Ali and saved all my money. As we started approaching the time that I was going to move, Ali put the idea to me that we should buy together and move our relationship forward. It was a little bit sooner than I think our families were ready for, but they were really supportive and really lovely about it, and we just went into it with really sort of grown-up mindset. And you know, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Luckily now we're married. But I think the responsibility of owning a home was what tipped me over the edge. I don't think I'd mentally prepared myself for the pressure of that, and I was working in a job where I don't think I felt very secure, and I felt like I was going to lose my job at any moment, and it just spiraled from there. I'd started experiencing problems with my sleep at my grandma's, and I kept saying to her, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I'm absolutely shattered, but when it comes to actually falling asleep, I can't do it. I can't fall asleep. Started there, and then when we moved home, it got progressively worse. So I booked myself in at the doctor's, and it turned out that I had sleep anxiety. So somehow all of this stuff had like manifested itself in my sleep. Sleeping became the biggest part of my life, and I was just focusing everything on the fact that I needed to sleep, and the fact that I was doing that was making it a whole lot worse, and I was putting all of this pressure on my sleep, and when it came down to it, I wasn't able to sleep. I would be exhausted throughout the day. I would be falling asleep. My eyes would be sore and bloodshot. I would be extremely unhappy and extremely tired and grouchy, and I couldn't wait to get home and fall asleep, and then the vicious cycle would just happen again, and I wouldn't sleep, and I would be incredibly frustrated. I can't even express to you how the frustration was, and from that frustration would be the actual anxiety side of things. So I would begin to panic and stress about the fact that I wasn't sleeping, and that I then had to get up in the morning and go to work and drive down the M1, and I became extremely unhappy. There was one time when I couldn't sleep, and I ended up having to phone the 111 helpline because I honestly thought I was dying. The panic within me and the unsettled feeling and the fear, that's the only thing that I can kind of describe it as, is the fear of yourself, was so much that I called them. I've never called the NHS helpline in my life, and I haven't called them since. It was terrifying. That's the only thing that I can say. And I was sat down on the sofa downstairs because I didn't want to disturb Ali, because Ali obviously has his job and his life, and he can't be babying me throughout the night, and I felt that immense guilt for that as well. So it was all kind of like knock-on effects from this feeling of being out of my depth, my fear of losing my job, and then losing my house, and then losing everything and ending back where I was a few years earlier. And I lived that way for about 3 to 4 months. I'd been to the doctors on a few occasions. Initially they prescribed me diazepam. Now diazepam is something that you just don't really want to be messing around with too much, and I was quite good with it. I kept it in my top drawer as kind of like, I know it's there, I've got that knowledge that it's there, and it was only in real times of need that I would kind of break one of the tablets and use like a crumb of it and hope that that could help me get to sleep. But more often than not, it didn't really help. It wasn't enough to knock me out, but I was petrified of the tablet as well. So if I took the tablet, I was scared I was going to die in my sleep. And it was just, I mean, the irrational fears that I felt during that time was immense. And I don't feel that I've ever gone back to that point. Now, I've struggled with my pill recently. I feel like I'm in a much better place now, but that was totally unrelated to the sleep anxiety. And pardon the pun, but I feel like I've well and truly put that area and that time and that episode in my life to bed. So the biggest turning point in my recovery from my sleep anxiety and that time in my life came when I started yoga. Now, it wasn't straight away that I realized that yoga was going to have such a huge impact on my life. I basically was going to the White Space studio, and I was going to work in the morning. I was spending basically the whole day panicking and stressing about getting home, about going to bed, and then being late for my yoga session that I'd booked myself into with Carrie. I'd drive down the M1, there'd be traffic, I'd be stressing that I was going to miss it, and by the time that I arrived at the studio, I was a wreck. My heart was racing, sometimes I was even like sweating from the state I was in, and I would think to myself as I walked through the door, why are you doing this? It's stressing you out more just getting there than it is doing you any good. Why are you doing this? And then there was one time when I was really, really stressed, and I had one of the nighttime yoga classes, and we went in, and it was very different to the ones that we'd normally done. Basically spent a lot of the yoga class lying on the floor and breathing. And initially I was thinking to myself, am I paying £11 for this? To just lie on the floor and breathe? I could do this at home. And it was within about 10 minutes of doing that I started to fall asleep naturally. So I'd had no help, no tablets, no nothing. The lady that was teaching the class had managed to get me into a state of relaxation where I was so relaxed and so calm that I was falling asleep naturally, and I hadn't experienced that for a very, very, very long time. I realized that I needed to devote time to this and learn what helps me when I'm on the verge of one of those kind of episodes. It taught me about controlling my breath, because the biggest thing that I realized was my breathing was where it started. All of a sudden I would be taking shorter breaths. Before you know it, you're in panic mode. So what yoga and meditation, although I still don't feel like I'm very good at meditation, that's something that I want to start improving on. Yoga was the one that taught me. Even just the circular breathing method could have such a huge impact on the panic levels that you're experiencing when you're going through one of those episodes. And from there, I've learned numerous things about myself. And it doesn't just come, you know, from yoga and lighting candles and incense. I try and keep it as chilled as possible and not take it too far. But it is something that I now know has such a massive impact on me, so I do devote a lot of time to it. I did also start cognitive behavioural therapy through my doctors. So when I went to them and after they prescribed me diazepam, they also put me through cognitive behavioural, it's such a mouthful, but cognitive behavioural therapy. And I had a few sessions of that and it was really, really helpful. It taught me how to identify where it had all started and where it was all coming from. I was able to identify that once I'd moved house, that pressure kind of sent everything crumbling down around me. And it was just that straw that broke the camel's back, essentially. As much as Ali struggled to understand what I was going through, because Ali is such a like black and white person, like he's never really suffered anything like that. I think nowadays he's realised what pressure can do to you, and now that he's in quite a high pressured job, he understands and he has to do things now to relax himself. And we did yoga together this morning. He mainly did that because he was really tight in his legs, but I know that he experiences benefits from it. I was able to understand that I wasn't on my own, and it also taught me about some of the triggers in my mind and how to understand the effects of some things on my mind and how it had caused me to get to the point where I was in such great need of help. If you are at a point where you just don't even know where this is coming from and you need to kind of pinpoint what this trigger is and what has happened, then I would suggest going to your GP and just explain to them that you would really like to speak to someone about cognitive behavioural therapy and learn about the behaviours that you have, how they can help you, and how they can obviously have a detrimental impact as well. I continue to make changes in my life and continue to change my mindset and get better with everything that I'm thinking and everything that I'm doing. I also feel like I'm constantly changing things in my life to get better and cope better and deal with the everyday things in life a lot better. Whether that's assessing who you have around you and the kind of people and their energy that you have around you, or whether that's your own mindset and changing things in that, because I still to this day change my mindset so much. Like, I'm always trying to live a really positive life, and there's different stages where I'm like, oh, you've really improved since that point there, and you've really changed how you view things since that point there. So I'm always trying to improve and get better at coping. So my mindset today is, I feel like I'm always getting better. Like I mentioned, I feel like I'm constantly improving and learning what it is I need as a person. And over the last few months, I've experienced some changes again. I think the biggest thing that I've had to cope with since that episode is YouTube and the growth that I experienced on YouTube. And I know that there are lots of people that grow and have in much bigger growth than me. And I did honestly, I saw someone tweet once that instead of getting a gold play button when you hit 1 million subscribers, you should get therapy because YouTube has been the biggest test on my mental strength since that point. So I am still bettering myself and improving and changing things so that I can cope with the life that I have. Now, YouTube isn't the hardest job physically, and it's not the most testing in terms of your academic abilities, but in terms of your mental state, I would say that it is definitely the most challenging thing I think I've ever been through. I have had to adapt my life to ensure that I can cope with that. So moving to where we live, I really wanted to feel like I was escaping here and I was away from it all, and this was my little place where I knew I was safe and I could come and just be myself and be with my friends and just have that that little space. And then I've also had to make some quite selfish changes as well in terms of the people that I've had around me. It's no disrespect to any of those people that maybe I don't see as much as I used to, or anything like that. It's just I had to kind of make some changes for me, and I really do feel the benefits of those changes on a daily basis. And I know that at least I can sort of say that yes, I was selfish, but I made those changes for myself, and I needed to make those changes for myself. I also focus a lot more on my health and fitness, but in a different way. You might remember that I went through a bit of a fitness stage, and I introduced that to my blog, and that's actually when I grew quite a lot in terms of Instagram. I used to focus on the aesthetic side of fitness, and whilst I still like to look my best and all of that jazz, I focus more now on my inner health, the inner health of my body, the inner health of my mind, and I do a lot of things differently now. So whereas I'll still do my cardio and my weights, I also do a lot more yoga, a lot more Pilates, and I also want to do a bit of a meditation course, because as much as I do meditate, I don't feel like I've really got the technique nailed. So I feel like if I was to speak to someone and do maybe some classes on it, I'd really benefit from that. So that's something that I'm looking into at the moment. But again, one of those choices that I'm making for me. It's kind of where I am at the moment, especially having the studio, which is such a luxury for me to just be able to go down there, put on a yoga DVD or put on a guided meditation DVD, and I can just do my own thing down there. It's quite nice being by yourself as well. And I light some incense and I make it super hippie down there. So the main thing that I kind of want to get across with this video is that obviously there's a lot of talk online about mental health and the struggles with mental health and coping with mental health, and I really wanted to put across that it's not always a life sentence, and there are people that go through episodes and very much come out the other side and actually learn so much about themselves in the process that they grow and they get better and their whole kind of attitude changes. That was something that I really wanted to make sure that when people watch these videos and you know, are going through this, that it doesn't mean that this has to be with you for the rest of your life. I'm also not saying that everyone will be like me and that they will come out the other side. It's a journey that only you'll go through and only you'll experience. But some of the best advice that I can say is speak to your GP, try everything, be selfish, do things that you know are just for yourself. It might feel weird at first. I did feel incredibly odd doing yoga and meditation. It felt a little bit foreign to me. I'm not someone like Al on Love Island. I don't feel like I'm that kind of person. So it was a really big learning curve for me to kind of open up myself for that and embrace it and take it seriously, because it just felt so different. None of my friends are really like that. And then there's the obvious side of things. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I remember when I had a family member go through the same thing, he phoned me up and I helped him. And when I was going through it, I phoned people that I knew could help me. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone. They could offer you that one piece of advice that changes everything. And just make sure that you have the best possible network and group of people around you at all times when you're going through it, because those are the people that are going to lift you up when you really need them to. So that's a little bit about my journey, and I hope that I've gone in depth enough about it. I didn't want to ramble on because I like to ramble, but I did also have a few questions from people, so I kind of grouped a few together. How do I keep my mindset on track when I've had a really bad day? I never want anyone to think that I'm making out that I'm perfect at this, at living a positive life, at not having bad days. I'm not saying that I never have them. Of course you do. You have those days where you're like, gosh, like this is a bit much, isn't it? And it's, I often think, and I try not to share those days too much because this is a channel that I want to be a positive space, but I also want you guys to know that they very much happen and I very much experience them. And sometimes they can coincide with a really difficult time on the internet, and that is just woo. The internet is a brutal place, but it's also an amazing place. So it's a bit of a sort of bittersweet place sometimes. As much as it can lift you up, it can also drag you down, and when you are going through a difficult time, that's incredibly difficult. But when it does come to those days, I try and take myself away from that, and I'll do what I need to do to just let myself have that time. And sometimes I don't get up in the morning at 6 AM and jump out of bed and love life. Sometimes I sleep straight the way through my alarm and I wake up at 9 o'clock and I'm like, I'm annoyed at myself because I find that very demotivating, but obviously I needed that, and I needed to have those extra hours in bed, or have that moment where or just have that day where I stay in my pajamas all day and I just write on my laptop, do the admin side of things, rather than being up and in front of the camera and entertaining and doing what I do on the internet. I just let myself have that admin day, and I know that the next day is another day, and if I need to, I can get up, I can do my yoga, I can do whatever it is I need to get myself in the zone that day. That day is another day, and I took that down day and I did what I did with that. Just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you have to have a bad life. So just take that day, learn whatever you need to learn from it, and start the next day how you want to. So I had another question which was all about dealing with uncertainty and the path that you're on and not feeling like you really know what you're doing. This might shock some people, but I often feel like I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. I have my own little like goals, but sometimes I'm a bit like, I actually don't really know. And I kind of like the fact that it's a little bit uncertain and I don't know what in terms of the internet is going to happen, but it's also quite exciting. But when I left university, I had no idea what to do. I was like, right, so I've done that, now what? I was applying for jobs and I wasn't really getting anywhere with it, so I did what I had to do to cope in that time. It's a journey. This is the thing that people think. They think they're gonna come out of university and they're gonna have their career and everything's gonna be perfect. And that might happen to some people, but I don't think it happens to a lot of people. And I came out of uni a bit like, okay, I'm here, like, give me a damn job. I realized quickly that it wasn't gonna be as simple as that, so I just got the job that I needed to get. I started working in a shop. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing after just paying over £20,000 for a degree, but I did it to keep my head above the water. And that was obviously a stepping stone to the next point. So from there, I received a promotion to head office. And then from there, I went on to my blog. So it wasn't like I just started my blog and it was there. There's a journey that you have to go through, and you can't expect everything to come at once. You can't expect every day to be the perfect day. There's going to be the days where you don't know what you're doing. There's going to be the days where you don't know where you're going, and it's going to feel like, why am I doing this? I am a strong believer in fate, and I'm a strong believer in karma, and I kind of trust those things in guiding me to a certain extent through life. I know that I have to make some decisions. I know that there will be changes and choices that I will make along the way, and hopefully that is always towards molding and building and moving towards the life that I hope to have one day. I have uncertain days as well, and I have a lot of them sometimes. Sometimes I go through a point and I'm like, I really don't know what is going on right now or where I'm going with this, but I'm hoping that I will see the light soon. And whether it's a month, a week, a day down the line, often you see where that stepping stone came from, and it's all about the path. I talk about the path so much. I love the path. And I got a lot of questions about mental health and the internet. I feel like I'm a bit of a veteran in dealing with the not so great side of the internet, and I thought I had a thick skin. Now my skin is like this. It's like a breeze block. I was always very, very happy with who I was and very comfortable, and I still am. Dealing with the negativity online is incredibly testing, even to the most strong-minded people. And sometimes it's just, whew, do you know what? Like, give me a break. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned with the internet is anyone that is close enough to know me for who I am and know me for the person that I am is the only kind of person that can really say what I'm like. People that see what I put out on the internet, or see my vlogs, or see my blogs, or see my Instagram posts, they don't really know shit about me. And I saw Susie from Hello October put up a quote recently, and it was like, let people judge you for who they think you are. That's what I've learned, is that people will have opinions on things, and people will judge your relationships, your life, your house, your goals, your everything. But it's only the people that know that really matter. And so I've been able to distance myself quite a bit from what happens online to everything that happens outside of it, and the reality, and not just what people see. But it is hard. It is incredibly hard to deal with what happens on the internet, and you do feel very alone, because unfortunately the police have no idea with what they're doing. I hope that in future the police will focus a lot more on protecting not just creators but children that are on the internet, because at the moment it is a bit of a free-for-all and people just aren't held accountable. So that's the biggest change I hope to see on the internet. But lucky for me, I am able to notice the areas that I need to change in my life for me to deal with that. And one of the biggest things was removing my work from my personal life, and I quite like that. So that's the main thing that I've done, is making changes. Like if it's not working, if something is broken and something isn't working for you in your life, change it. I hope that you have enjoyed this little chat that we've had. I kind of wanted to make some videos without, you know, talking about products, without talking about things that I've been buying, and just give you a little bit more of an insight into the way that I think, the way that I cope, what I've been through. Even if one person takes something quite useful from this, then I'm glad I made the video and told you about this. Every experience is different when it comes to mental health and anxiety, but perhaps some of the things that I've mentioned in this video will help you as well. So yeah, something a little bit different for the channel, but I hope you enjoyed it. So I will hopefully see you in my next video, which will probably either be a vlog or an unboxing or something like that. But this was just a little bit of something to switch it up a little bit. But let me know if there are any other topics that you would like me to discuss and chat with you about. Pop them in the description box. And remember, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. That's the biggest indicator if you enjoyed it. So yeah, I will see you in my next video, hopefully. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Bye.